Welcome to the series Speaking Up for Point Molate, in which invited speakers address key questions about Point Molate and members of the public can ask questions. We'd like to begin this program by recognizing that we are gathered on unceded Ohlone land. For thousands of years, the Lijan Ohlone people have lived on this land that is now the East Bay, including Point Molate. In their own words, they did not own the land, they belonged to it. We recognize the importance of this land to the Ohlone people, past, present, and future, and we invite you to join us in learning about and honoring the Lijan Ohlone history and work today. Our speakers present for about 30 to 40 minutes. We invite sincere questions asked with courtesy and respect. Also, please use the chat to let us know how we can improve. Or leave your email if you'd like us to contact you directly with future speakers in the series. All chat will appear in the recording. We'll post the webpage for our YouTube channel to the speaker series in the chat. I'm Pam Stello. I'm co-chair of the Point Molate Alliance and Richmond Shoreline Alliances, and I serve on the board of Citizens for East Shore Parks. I live in Richmond, and I'm co-founder and co-host of this series with Sally Tobin. Sally Tobin is a biologist and a retiree of the Stanford Center for Biomedical Ethics. She works with the Point Molate and Richmond Shoreline Alliances and is a member of the Bay Area Sea Kayakers. She serves on the board of Citizens for East Shore Parks, and she also lives in Richmond. Sally, can you wave? Thanks. Our Zoom administrator is Danny Zaki. Danny's an organizer with the San Francisco Bay chapter of the Sierra Club, focusing on bay and shoreline issues. Danny's also working on her master's degree at UC Davis, studying geography. Please wave, Danny. Today, we're very pleased to have Celina Hernandez with us to introduce us to GeoTracker. Celina is a senior engineering geologist at the San Francisco Bay Regional Water Quality Control Board, and she's a supervisor in the Groundwater Protection Division. She supervises Jacob Henry, who is the caseworker for Point Molate. She has 25 years of experience as a consultant in the local geotechnical and environmental cleanup industries, and the last 6 years at the Regional Water Board. She's from San Jose, California. She obtained her Bachelor of Science in Earth Sciences at UC Santa Cruz. Welcome, Celina. I'll pass the mic to you.
Thank you, Pam, for that introduction. Hi, everybody. Nice to meet you all and see you all. I'm going to be presenting on GeoTracker. Let me just get my slides up. Okay. Right. All right. So go to the next slide. So as Pam mentioned, I'm the section leader in the Regional Water Board for San Francisco Bay region, and Jacob Henry is the caseworker for Point Molate, and he's on my team. So the Water Board consists of different divisions. There are a couple of cleanup divisions in our region, and they are referred to as Groundwater Protection Division and the Toxics Cleanup Division. The Groundwater Protection Division focuses on Department of Defense and Department of Energy sites, and the site cleanup program mainly has petroleum underground storage tank sites and other cleanup sites that kind of are like industrial facilities, dry cleaners, anything else other than petroleum USTs and non-DOD Department of Defense sites. So we have two cleanup divisions, and then there are several other divisions that deal with permitting. So there's different discharge permits that we oversee, and some of them are you may be familiar with some of the cleanup sites, and they have to do some groundwater cleanup, and they have to get a permit to discharge that water. And we have a division that manages that permit and they have to comply, the dischargers have to comply with that permit. So that's just an example of some of the other permits that we oversee. And the Groundwater Protection Division also has a landfill division. So we, that group oversees all the landfills in our region. And then we also work on cleanup cases that are non-Department of Defense and non-petroleum UST sites. So we do a lot, and we have a lot of cases. So here is a slide with Jacob's information and my contact information. And then I also want to note that we have Jessica Watkins, who is the division manager for groundwater protection, and also Eileen White, who is our executive officer in this meeting tonight as well, if you guys want to wave. So we are, I'll just say that, you know, we've had a lot of people retiring and there's a lot of new folks, including myself, Eileen, and Jessica. And Jacob has been with the water board for about a couple of years. And Jessica has been here for almost, I think, 10 years. So she is transferred into groundwater protection and was promoted to this division manager position. I'm going to actually put in the chat, once I get out of this slide presentation, the website for our San Francisco Bay Regional Water Board. So that has some helpful information about all the other different programs that we have, and some other contact information for those different programs. So it's a helpful resource to just get a better understanding of all the different divisions and the work that we do in this region. So I'll put that in as soon as I'm out of this. And I just wanted to share this slide. So this is a list of sites associated with the former Naval Fuel Depot at Point Molate. And I just wanted to explain a couple of things and walk through. So at the top of the page, you'll see the global ID, the project name, project type, and status. And this information was pulled from or extracted from GeoTracker, which is a public database where we store all of our files and data for our cleanup sites. So the global ID is just kind of like a site ID, I guess you can say. So you can search GeoTracker. Oops, let me get back up. You can search GeoTracker by inputting the global ID. And then there's also the project name. So you can search typing in the project name. And then the other two, the project status, the project type, and the status, I just kind of wanted to explain those a little bit. You'll see that for this particular site, it says military privatized site. And there's several different types of project types in GeoTracker. So, you know, the site cleanup program sites have a designation for site cleanup, and the military sites also have, I think it's just like military site, but the military privatized sites are actually an indicator that the facility has been transferred or the property has been transferred to a different entity or a different property owner. So for Point Molate, the properties or the sites have been transferred to the city. So those fall under the military privatized site. But we don't want to lose that history that it was a military site. So that's why we have this project type that's still associated with the military. And then there's the status. So it's there's different types of status, and these are just a few examples of open verification monitoring, open as in the case is still open, obviously, and then site assessment. And then you'll see at the bottom, there's this assessment and interim remedial action. So that just says that they're doing two things at once. Probably they're doing some assessment and maybe there's a remedy in place that they're monitoring, or they're doing active remediation. And the open site assessment is sort of the initial phase of our cleanup sites where you're gathering information, you're characterizing the site. So that's site assessment. And verification monitoring is usually, you know, that you've done all your characterization, maybe you already have a remedy and it's been implemented, and you're just doing some monitoring of either groundwater or soil vapor and that's the phase that's in. It's kind of one of the later phases of like a cleanup site. So the site name is the Naval Fuel Depot, Point Molate. So you, like I said, you could type in that NFD Point Molate in GeoTracker and you could see some sites pull up. So these are the active sites, and there are actually some closed sites, and they're not listed here, but there's about 17 closed sites, and those are primarily petroleum underground storage tank sites. So those are the 3 slides that I wanted to show you. And I shared these slides with Pam, so you can have them. If you don't have them already, you can just email her. So I'm going to stop sharing, and then I'm going to put in our website. A couple of websites. So here is our San Francisco Bay Regional Water Board website. And then I will also put in the GeoTracker website. And all this is also in the slides as well. All right, so now I will share my screen to go through. I'm basically going to do a live demo of GeoTracker. So let me just get that set up. Oh. Share screen. Here we go. Okay. All right, so I can't see anybody in this mode, but maybe we can hold questions till the end as I get through this. Or maybe I'll stop and pause and see if there's questions. I think I'll do that instead. So this is the homepage for GeoTracker. And there's a little write-up here below that explains what GeoTracker is. And basically it's just a database where we keep all of our electronic files, and including electronic data files. So you can download reports, you can download data, and look up the information for these particular sites. So the one thing I'll just highlight is that this says that we kind of gives an insight of the types of projects that we oversee. So we have, irrigated lands, those are like landfills, and then oil and gas production facilities, and then underground storage tanks, petroleum sites, and oh, I'm sorry, this is different. Irrigated lands is different than land disposal sites. And then we have what I was explaining before was we have just our cleanup sites that encompass a bunch of different types of sites, including redevelopment sites. So we get new cases that are redevelopment sites, and we oversee activities during redevelopment. If they have to implement any cleanup during that time or collect samples because of the history of the site, then we also oversee that type of site. Okay, so there's a bunch of stuff here at the top. And this is actually just the home button. So you can always go there, and then I'm not going to walk through all these different reports, but there are different reports that you can download if you want to learn about, you could find maximum like data for the region. So there's a bunch of stuff here that's available for the public. And then there's also all the information about underground storage tank closures, and those are associated with petroleum only. And then there is this tab, how to use GeoTracker. and you can actually take a tour. So if you click on this take a tour, it kind of goes through some of the stuff that I'm going to show you today. And ESI stands for electronic submittal of information, and that includes all the technical reports that you see in the files, and also analytical data and boring logs. Those all are electronic submittals of information that we ask the responsible parties to upload to GeoTracker. And then there's just some information here under this tab. I think the fact sheet is really helpful. And then there's also there's a GAMMA website that stands for it's actually groundwater monitoring data, and you can access it through GeoTracker, but you can actually look up public supply wells and then wells that are associated with cleanup cases, and select specific data like chemical data or different compounds, and you can search that data through GAMMA. So that's pretty helpful for some folks. And then this is just the email, like for if you're having issues or you need help with GeoTracker. So now I'm just going to walk through searching a site. So I'm just going to type in the NFD Point Molate, and then you'll see a bunch of different sites coming up. And if I scroll down to the bottom, you'll see some of these case closed. So just so you can see the different statuses. So I'm just going to click on this first one, site 1. And you can access the map from this at this point, if you wanted. And then I think this will bring me to the file for the site. So each site has so a lot of our Department of Defense sites have multiple sites associated with them. So like this one is a former landfill. So all the records are kind of separated out into different sites. So hopefully that makes it easier for people if they want to find information for a specific site, as opposed to just having one case file for the entire site. So this is the home page. This is what the home page looks like for a particular site. So has some regulatory information here, like the case status, and then there's like a little bit of a site history or a background that is also provided on this homepage. And there's different tabs associated with each site. These are all the same for every site. So the regulatory activities kind of gives a chronological history of letters that have been issued or correspondence from the regulator. And then the site maps and documents is probably what most folks are interested in from the public. And these are basically, it's also the correspondence, but it's also technical reports. And they're broken down into different sections. So these are all part of the electronic data files. So they have the site maps, boring logs, and the KML and the KMZ files are mainly for like mapping or GIS use. So this site doesn't have any of that information, but it is probably in these reports, these technical reports. So the site documents, this is like all the reports except for monitoring reports. So there is a separate section for monitoring reports, and you usually have to scroll down to the bottom of the page. So this particular site doesn't have a lot of site documents at the top, but some of our sites have a lot of site documents. So you have to scroll all the way to the bottom to get to the monitoring reports. So there, I'll just pick something just so you could see what it looks like. This is, so you click on the link, the hyperlink, and then this window pops up. And then you can get the information. And then you'll see these, this window, or I don't know what you call this thing that pops up at the bottom. And you could save it, or you could print it to your desktop. And then you can scroll, you know, just kind of like a normal Adobe kind of tools there. So that's how you can download it and save it to your desktop. I'm going to go back. And then there's this related cases. So this site is linked to a lot of the Department of Defense sites. When they were first set up in GeoTracker, they had this like parent facility or parent site in GeoTracker. And so a lot of times for the Department of Defense sites, the caseworkers save a lot of the site documents under this parent site. So if you don't see stuff under the site specific, there might be something in this under this parent facility. And I am going to click on this because I thought there was something I wanted to show you here. Yes, there is. Okay, so this little box right here is pretty helpful. It says include documents for associated cases. So if there are other cases associated with it, then it will bring in those documents as well, which can be a little helpful. So that's just a kind of a trick or shortcut. Let's see. This one doesn't have a cleanup action report. So as a caseworker, we have to keep GeoTracker updated, and there's different information that we include, and this cleanup action report kind of brings in all that information about the status of the site. So for this particular site, it looks like maybe some of the fields aren't completed, and so that's why there's no information in there, but it does compile and pull it from the different fields that we keep updated on our end. And I should say that there is a regulator version of GeoTracker. So the regulator version, it's a project management tool, so it kind of helps us manage our projects. So what the public interface is a little different than the regulator side of things. And then the community involvement tab, this is kind of used to keep track of public participation. And, we've been focused on environmental justice in the last few years. So this is kind of a new field under community involvement. And there is a mapping tool that Cal EPA developed. It's called Cal EnviroScreen, and it basically designates areas that have kind of like environmental concerns, I guess you could say, and it ranks it. So you can find out more information if you click on this or this info tab. But I'm not going to go into detail of that, but it's kind of interesting to see how Cal EPA developed this. It's basically like a screening tool for regulators to help prioritize sites based on the environmental concerns, how it ranks. And then here in the last area is community involvement documents. So here's a fact sheet from 2009, it looks like. So community involvement documents would fall in this under this tab. Okay, and what else do I want to show you? Does anybody have any questions? I guess I will stop there. See if anybody does. Okay, I'm not hearing anything, so I will move on. The other thing I wanted to show you, and I'm going to show you the map. So this is kind of cool. So if you click on the map when you're in a site, you click here. And this might take a while to load. All right. So I'm going to put it on satellite so you can toggle between the map view with no features or satellites. And then there's this night mode if you have problems with the bright light on the screen. So here is satellite view, and you can pan. You just click on it and have a little hand there, and you pan around. So the blue is what is designated as the Point Molate Department of Defense site. And then I will zoom in a little bit here. And then there's a legend over here. And hopefully you can see this. It's kind of small. But there's different, like I was saying, there was different types of sites. And so the Lust is leaking underground storage tank, and those are the petroleum cleanup sites. So you can click remove these, or you can add them, because sometimes there's a lot of sites, and sometimes it's nice to like remove stuff and then focus on some of the sites that you really want to see. Excuse me. And then there's the green, so that's red. And then the green is the site cleanup program sites. So those are everything but the Department of Defense and the Department of Energy sites. And then all the yellows are the military sites. So there is you can't really, it's kind of hard to see, but there's a yellow with like a blue outline for the box. And those are the military privatized sites. And then there's a yellow box that's outlined kind of orange or red. And those are the military cleanup sites that are still where the responsible party is still like the military. And then we also separate out the petroleum underground storage tank sites at military bases. So those also have a different outline. So they're yellow with a black box, I believe. That's black. It's kind of hard for me to see. So then over here, there's another key. And this is kind of nice because it shows all the sites that you see in your map view. So if you zoom in and zoom out, more sites will pop up. So if I zoom in really close, then it's going to focus on just the maps that you see in that map view. And I should mention that the X's, so any box that you see with an X, that means that the case is closed. And that's for the petroleum underground storage tank sites and also the cleanup program sites. So any X means that the case is closed, just like this one right here. So you can click on these hyperlinks to access the case file, which I just showed you earlier. So that this is one way to look for sites and get to the site documents. I'm going to go back to the legend, and there's a bunch of other features. So that's, so then you can also click on DTSC sites, and those will be mapped with the blue triangles. And some sites are actually DTS, they're linked to DTSC's case file. So that can be also helpful if DTSC is overseeing some cleanup associated with the water board site. So that's nice to have, to be able to toggle between the two, because DTSC also has a public database for cleanup sites that they oversee. And it's similar to ours, just it's just a little bit different, but that's where you can get data from DTSC as well, from their database. It's called EnviroStore. Let's see, other field point names. So you can click on field points, public water wells, non-case information is they're not open sites, but we're looking into them. So I think I'll just leave it at that. So there's some information about the site, but we're still trying to gather information to determine what the status of the site is. So you may see some of that or you can select them, and you just have to check the box to have them shown on the map. But the field points and the sampling points are usually associated with cases. So if there's analytical data, then you can click on those icons and you would be able to see the analytical data. I don't know if, oh, there is a bunch. So I don't know if you just saw the pink. Let me just zoom in here. There's these little pink dots. So if you click on those, it shows the global ID and then the field point sampling ID. So this one is called SB03-130. And then if you click on it, then it tells you which site it is associated with. And this was associated with a groundwater treatment system. So like I had said, there's a permit that you need to treat groundwater and then discharge it. And that's under this NPDES is the name of the permit. And that is another division in our region that oversees those permits. So you could click on view EDF, and that's electronic data file. And then it would bring up the chemical data, which is pretty cool. So you can do that for, let me see, hold on, I can't see because of this. I can't access the different tabs because this tool is blocking it. How do I? Okay, well, let me go back to the map. I'm just going to go back to the map this way. So that's just an example of how you can access the data from the map. And you can search, I can't really see the box, but because it's being blocked by this note for the presentation, but you can also type in sites here to search from the map. And then also there's a search by address. So if you have if you know of a site and you have the specific address, you can search that way. Or if you live in an area and you want to see, what sites are in your area, then you can put in your address and it'll map all the sites in that vicinity. So that's kind of cool. Now I'm going to go back to the home page. So back to the home page, and I'm just going to show you that you can actually access the map by clicking on the magnifying glass from this home page, which is faster to access the map. Because sometimes it's easier to search for things if you have a map or if you have an address instead of trying to remember the site name or whatever. And because our headquarters is in Sacramento at the Capitol, the default map city that it goes to from the homepage is Sacramento. So I'm gonna just go back here, FD Point Molate, and just click on one of these and then go back to the site. So that was just to show you how to get to the map from the homepage. Let me just see. Okay, I think that's all that I wanted to cover. Stop sharing and see if there are any questions. Let me see the chat. Oh, okay. So somebody asked, I understand that in the Sense of Public Records Act requests, what documents not found in the GeoTracker database. So when you can go to our regional water board website, and there should be a contact for public records. So we have a woman in our office, Melinda Wong, that's amazing. And she does all of our public records requests. So you can come in, that we still have some paper files. So Melinda like checks, you know, she does like a whole search and sees if there's any paper copies and sees if there's any other electronic files from caseworkers' personal files. So she'll respond to you, and you could come into the office and review those paper files. And there's also microfiche. So there is a microfiche out there, and Melinda has, I think there's a couple of them. So sometimes there's stuff in there as well. So yes, you are correct that not all the files are in GeoTracker, but a good majority of them are, because for the last, I don't know, over 10 years, we've been trying to put all of our paper copies in GeoTracker. And we require our dischargers to upload reports. For the military facilities, it's a little bit different. So the caseworker has to manage all those uploads. So the military facilities do not upload, typically don't upload the technical reports that they submit or electronic data files. So we're responsible for that. And that's all I'll say about that.
Celina, to make it easier for you, I'll turn the mic over to Sally, and then she can lead the Q&A.
Oh, okay.
And I'll also, just to make it easier for you, and I'll also check the chat.
Okay, thank you.
But that was a wonderful presentation. Thank you very, very much.
I hope it was helpful.
Very much so. And I'm sure we have a lot of questions.
Okay.
Yes, and I noticed that that Jacob has been doing a really good a really good job of answering some of the questions in the chat. So that's very efficient. You have two people working on this at the same time. So Tony, you had a question.
Yeah, two-step unmute process here. Yeah, the questions were about the irrigation monitoring. I'm just curious what was encompassed with that. And then, so we were shown, and somebody actually, Jacob had already put something out there, but red boxes with red X's. How do red boxes differ from green boxes?
Right. So the red boxes are petroleum underground storage tank sites, and the green boxes are under our site cleanup program. And those sites are everything except for Department of Defense and Department of Defense sites. So there's a distinction between the military, and the yellow is the military sites. So there's 3 different colors: red, green, and yellow. And that's the meaning of them. Did that answer your question?
Yes,
Okay.
and just I couldn't resist doing this. Looking at the people who were on this program, watching this program tonight, there are many of us who are all too familiar with microfiche and probably don't have very fond memories of it.
Yeah, there's still some nuggets in there though. I definitely, Melinda's helped me navigate microfiche, and you find a lot of old files there that have been pretty helpful to get that background. So I guess it's good that they're still available.
Okay, and then there's a person who is represented by the initial C. You had a question?
Yeah, I do. So having sites identified on a map, have the sites identified on a map as dots or squares or circles or whatever is one representation. It would be much more helpful to us in the community if, and elsewhere, I think, elected officials, if these sites could also or alternatively be represented as the property that constitutes the site, not necessarily the extent of the contamination, but the property that's defined as the site. And I think that if we saw these dots turn into properties or extents of acreage, that in some areas, such as Richmond, which we think is impacted, that would give a very different sense of the extent of contamination on certain shoreline areas. And so is there a way to make that happen?
I don't know the answer to that, but I do know that has come up from caseworkers, because that would also be helpful for us in managing these sites.
So I assume there's a group that manages the website, and those are the group, that's the group that you appeal to make changes to the database or the program. Can you tell us how can we, if you're not the one that can make that change, I would expect, how do we as community members try to affect some changes that we think would be better from the community's point of view?
Right, and I will go back to the homepage for GeoTracker, and there's actually this icon here. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I don't see the cursor.
Oh, okay. There's at the very end on the top right, there's a phone and a letter. And if you click on that, that will bring you to the help desk. So you can email the help desk, and you can I would definitely just give your feedback on what would be helpful for the public. I think that would be helpful information for them to know, because we give them feedback on, different reports, and they update GeoTracker to accommodate us, to help us manage our sites. So I would imagine that it would be helpful to get feedback from the public as well. So that's what I would do.
Thank you for that. And although we've given feedback a number of times and we don't see changes, they don't seem to make them very, very readily. And another example would be, there is no audit program for GeoTracker or for EnviroStore for that matter. So if a document doesn't get uploaded, or something doesn't, a letter isn't added or whatever, there's no audit program to catch those kinds of missing documents from what should be otherwise posted on the website, on the GeoTracker, for example.
Right, and I think that's when maybe the records request might come in helpful to help try and locate those documents. I see Jacob has his hands up, and maybe he wants to add something.
Oh, did you, Jacob, did you want to add something relevant to that question? Okay, go for it.
Yeah, I did. I mean, I feel your pain, C, on the whole, what is on GeoTracker and how is it useful? It takes, we as the regulators have to go up to the state board. We have to communicate with somebody there if we want to make a change or consolidate sites or something like that, something that you're asking for. or a change to GeoTracker is definitely difficult. One thing that I can say, I think I understood your question about understanding, what area is impacted or what is the status. Those reports are a good source of finding maps when you can download them. And now that I understand where the public is coming from, because I'm also a resident of Richmond, I'll make sure
Of course.
that I know that I'm behind on getting stuff uploaded to GeoTracker. I'm also behind on this site, as this was a site that I got after the previous regulator left, but it's on my list. I know that there's some things that are missing, and I generally try to keep up with that, and it's not always easy to make sure that those, not only my letters, but the documents get up there. The good thing about this RP is that, or the city, is that their consultant does upload the documents on a pretty regular basis. So usually everything is there, but loud and clear, hear that, and make sure that I'll definitely make sure that all of the everything that's pertinent to everybody on this call is on GeoTracker in the next month or so.
Thank you, Jacob. That's great.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So Julia,
Hi, thanks so much for that presentation. I have a similar question / request. So I think it's my understanding that neither Envirostore nor GeoTracker are complete in terms of all the toxic sites around the bay, because you can't see everything that's on Envirostore. That's a DTSC site on GeoTracker, if I'm understanding that correctly. Do you foresee, or is there any possibility of having one database, like integrating these two databases?
I don't see that, because they're two different agencies, but there is a way to get access on the map for DTSC sites. Do you want me to show that again?
Oh, okay. Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, let me just share my screen again.
And if the sites are joint sites, if both the DTSC and the water board are working on them, there in GeoTracker, there's generally an Envirostore link that'll go right to it. Other than this, you could use this method as well too, but for this one, and I put it in the chat, it's just the water board works on this one. We don't interact with the DTSC. They're not involved.
Okay, so here is, this is second, so they just you just pick on one of the Point Molates. Okay. Oh, but you know what? I don't know if there is. Okay. Anyway, so I'm going to go down to the legend here at the bottom left, and it says choose more sites. And you click on that, and then you go to cleanup sites. And then there's the blue triangle. Those are DTSC cleanup sites.
Might be a few.
And
if you zoom out, there might be a few, or you can always go to Modco or
and I'm just gonna you can check these boxes on or off. So I'm gonna check off some of these things to reduce the number. And this blue feature, it highlights the military sites. So you can remove that if that is causing problems seeing things. You can remove it here at the bottom under active map coverages. Just hit remove. So let's see if there's any.
And one other thing that I've learned about those is that they're not accurate and they're nearly impossible to change, because that one does not represent all of Point Molate.
Right, because Point Molate goes up here too, right?
Yeah, those are correct.
Right.
yeah, I was actually going to ask that question, because there were still all of the underground storage tanks uphill from the blue area.
Yeah, right. It's like, wait a minute. Yeah, I've had that problem. I've asked the state board multiple times, like, how do we change this? How do we get this to be accurate? They're like, we can't.
Okay.
I'm like, oh no.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate. But you can see the blue triangles now. There's a lot of,
there are some blue triangles over here, but there aren't. Oh wait, there's some right here. I don't know if that is.
That's not for Point Molate though.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah. So there's
Except for
blue
Chevron.
triangles, and you could click on those, and then it'll bring up the file on Envirostore. And here's Envirostore. So it looks very similar to ours. So let me see, I can actually just put this in the chat. Oh, what did I do? Skip. Let me just put this in the chat so you can all have that. But it sounds like some of you already know about this.
I
Website.
think we're at all kinds of different levels.
Okay,
Mhm.
so I put DTSC's website in there as well. All right, did that answer that last question? Okay, thanks,
Okay,
Julie.
yes, Julia is doing thumbs up.
Okay, great.
Okay, so since there isn't another question, then I'll go ahead and ask a question. So when an underground storage tank is shown as remediated, what does that mean? Are they empty? Are they filled with sand? Does that mean that petroleum products are completely removed? And, so what happens if they rust out?
Right. So let me ask a clarifying question. So when you say when it says that it's remediated, do you mean the status on GeoTracker, or that the case is closed, or
Right,
that
Mhm.
the case is closed? Okay, yeah. So usually that means that that they have I mean, yeah, there's different options. They could have filled the tank in place. They could have removed the tank and excavated around the tank. Those I think are the only options. I think for the most part, like in the 80s and 90s, I think most of those old steel tanks were pulled. But some of them might have been filled in place depending on how large they were. Because there's different capacities of tanks. So that's my answer to that question. Oh, Jacob has his hand up.
Oh,
Yeah, I can fill in a little bit more. So the tanks, primarily all of them, I believe, I don't think there were any underground steel tanks. They're all concrete, and they're
oh,
upwards of I think they're 2.5 million gallons each, something very large, but
Oh,
they're
wow.
concrete. And the ones that have been closed, I do not believe they were done. That was done before my time on the site, but I do not believe they were filled. I believe they were left in place. But the county? Yeah, the county goes out and does inspections quarterly of the tanks just to make sure their integrity looks good. There's no weird stuff coming out of them, or someone has done something and is in one of them or something like that. So they're pretty secure. They're all underground. I've been out there a few times, and you almost kind of don't realize it. There's these giant tanks in the hill. So yeah.
That's pretty well.
oh,
Okay.
thank you.
Mhm.
Tony.
We can't hear you.
You unmuted and then muted
There you
again.
go.
All right,
There we go.
gonna do that twice or three times to make a mistake. So actually, say a contemporary example. So take the Muni Woods shop, fuel contamination of the groundwater. And what they did there, and probably are still doing, is circulating water through the ground and vacuuming up the water and treating it. What other processes or whatever are going on to achieve a site to be finished?
Is that a general question, or is
Yeah,
this
that's a general question.
It's a
yeah.
general question. Yeah, so there's different types of remedies that are implemented at all these cleanup sites, and there's no distinction between a Department of Defense site and a regular cleanup site. So that sounds like sometimes they do some recirculation, but you're right that they pump it out and then they treat it, or they treat it and then re-inject it. And there's a special permit, I think, for that type of remedy. And then there is just straight groundwater extraction. So there's pumping wells that are installed for the site, and they pump groundwater, and then it is sent to a treatment compound or facility, depending on how large of a volume of water they're extracting. And those can be, so it goes through like mainly carbon treatment is usually what we see for those groundwater extraction systems. And that's just for groundwater. You know, there's different soil remediation technologies out there that are, you can do like in-place soil treatment where you inject a compound that will break down the chemical, and then you can have, there's soil vapor, which maybe I should explain a little bit. So there's different media on cleanup sites that we investigate and remediate, and it's soil, groundwater, and soil vapor. And soil vapor is basically off-gassing from either soil or groundwater, off-gassing those chemicals. So mainly it's like volatile chemicals, or the volatile chemicals that are part of petroleum, or you know, different chemicals.
Constituents.
Yes, constituents, thank you. So each media kind of has different treatment programs. So there's so soil can have injections, or you could just dig it out. And then for soil vapor, there's also extraction systems for soil vapor. And you can, so basically you would extract out only soil vapor above the groundwater table. So that's, you know, sometimes there's a lot of source above the groundwater table because of a release that happens at the surface. So it's locked up in that soil. So then you would install a groundwater, a soil vapor extraction system that basically does what the groundwater treatment system does. It like sucks out the vapor, and then it treats the air, it treats the vapor, and then discharges it to the air. So that's all under a discharge permit with the Air Quality Board. And then sometimes there's combination treatment systems. You know, if you have groundwater contamination and soil vapor, then they'll do like a dual treatment system where you're extracting both at the same time. Yeah, those are just some examples of different remedies. Does that answer your question?
He shook his head, yeah.
Okay, great.
Cool. Okay, thank you very, very much. I think we're about out of time, so I'll turn it back over to Pam. Thank you
very
everybody for your questions.
Yeah, thanks. This has been terrific. Thank you, Celina. And thank you for having your team here, and that you took time to be with us today. We really appreciate that. We know how busy you are. And this is part one. Jacob will also be presenting at another date. And so we just want to say how appreciative we are. And yeah, thank you. And I just want to thank everyone too for your questions. And I want to let everyone know about an event that's happening tomorrow as well that's related. At the City Council meeting, Dr. Christina Hill will be presenting about sea level rise and groundwater intrusion and how it will affect the Richmond shoreline. That meeting begins at 6:30, and we're hopeful that our council members will be moving this public hearing up to the front of the meeting. So you can join the beginning of the meeting and know when that public hearing will take place. So again, thank you all for being here, and we hope to see you next week.
And I just have one more,
yes.
one more thing to say. If you have any key interests for Point Molate, I think you can contact Jacob, and because he's working on developing his presentation. So I think it would be good to hear what your interests are about that case, so that he can have a more fit for purpose presentation that he'll do. So that was my plug.
Oh yeah, we appreciate that, and we'll be working on contacting Jacob as well. And as long as that's okay, Jacob, if you want to turn it back over to us, we can take the questions and build them up too. So just let us know.
Yeah.
Great. So
Whatever
thank you
works.
thank you again. We're deeply appreciative. This has been terrific.
Yeah, thank you. It was great. Good questions. Bye-bye.
Have a good evening.
Good
Yeah, you
evening,
too.
everyone. Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank
Good
you.
night, everyone.